What happens when a powerful CEO finally realizes that true happiness is not found in wealth or success, but in the arms of the woman who quietly stood beside him through every ordinary day? After spending months together at a peaceful hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's story is a touching and heartwarming journey about kindness, love, and hope. After spending many days searching through small villages and countryside roads, a kind young man finally finds Hana living alone in a poor old house. Seeing how difficult her life has become, he quietly decides to help her in the most sincere way. With his own hands, he builds Hana a beautiful wooden gate, transforming her lonely little home into a warm and welcoming place again. Deeply moved by his care and kindness, Hana slowly begins to feel happiness return to her heart after so many painful days alone. This emotional story will show how one small act of love can completely change someone's life. If you enjoy heartfelt stories about love, family, kindness, and emotional life journeys, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel to support us and watch more meaningful stories every day. Thank you so much for being here, and now, let's begin the story. In Tryside Farm, CEO Tuan and Tuan slowly fall deeply in love through simple moments filled with care, trust, and understanding. One romantic evening beside a glowing barbecue fire, Tuan finally gathers the courage to confess his deepest wish, to officially make Tuan his wife. Overwhelmed with emotion, Tuan gives him an answer that changes both of their lives forever. After many long days of searching through quiet countryside roads and small villages, the kind young man finally found Hana living in a tiny old house near a wide field filled with tall grass and cool afternoon winds. The moment he saw her standing quietly in front of the worn wooden porch, his heart felt lighter, as if all the worry and exhaustion he had carried for so long had suddenly disappeared. Hana looked thinner than before, and her simple clothes showed how difficult her life had become, but her gentle eyes and soft smile were still the same. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Hana could only stare at him in shock, unable to believe that someone had truly come looking for her after all this time. The young man slowly walked closer, carrying a small bag in his hand and a warm smile on his face. "I finally found you," he said softly. His voice was calm, but his eyes were filled with emotion. Hana lowered her gaze, trying to hide the tears that had already begun forming in her eyes. Life had not been easy for her since she left the city. She had been living alone in the old countryside house that once belonged to her late grandmother. The roof leaked whenever it rained, the fence was broken in many places, and the entrance to the house looked abandoned. Still, Hana tried her best to stay strong and continue living quietly without asking anyone for help. The young man looked around the small yard and immediately understood how hard her life had been. Wild grass had grown everywhere, and the old bamboo gate at the entrance leaned dangerously to one side, barely standing after years of storms and strong winds. Even though the house looked poor and worn out, he could still see how carefully Hana tried to keep everything clean and organized. There were small flower pots near the window, and neatly folded clothes hung outside under the sunlight. He realized that despite all the pain and hardship, Hana still held kindness and hope in her heart. Hana nervously invited him inside for tea, embarrassed by the condition of her small home. The wooden table was old, and the chairs creaked softly whenever they moved, but the young man never once complained. Instead, he smiled warmly and thanked her for welcoming him. As they sat together, Hana quietly asked why he had spent so much time searching for her. The young man looked at her gently before answering honestly. "Because I was worried about you," he said. "I didn't want you to face everything alone." Those simple words touched Hana deeply. For a very long time, she had felt forgotten by the world. She believed no one truly cared about where she was or how she lived. Hearing someone say they had searched everywhere just to make sure she was safe made her heart tremble with emotion. As the evening sunlight slowly covered the little yard in golden colors, the young man stepped outside again and stood silently near the broken gate. He carefully touched the old bamboo frame before turning back toward Hana with a thoughtful smile. "This house deserves a beautiful entrance," he said softly. "And you deserve a happier life." Hana looked at him quietly, her eyes shining with tears she could no longer hide. In that peaceful countryside moment, surrounded by the gentle wind and fading sunlight, she suddenly felt warmth returning to her lonely heart for the first time in many years. The very next morning, the kind young man woke up early before the sun had fully risen above the fields surrounding Hana's small house. A cool breeze moved gently through the trees while birds sang softly in the distance. Hana stepped outside carrying a small basket of vegetables, only to find him already standing near the broken bamboo gate, carefully measuring the entrance with a piece of string and a notebook in his hand. She looked at him with surprise, confused by how serious and focused he seemed so early in the morning. "What are you doing?" Hana asked quietly. The young man turned toward her with a bright smile. "I'm going to build you a new gate," he replied. "A strong wooden gate that will make this house feel warm and welcoming again." For a moment, Hana could not speak. She had only mentioned once that the old gate was falling apart, but he had remembered it. Her eyes slowly filled with emotion as she watched him continue measuring every corner carefully, already imagining how the new entrance would look. No one had ever paid attention to such small details in her life before. Later that day, the young man traveled to a nearby village to buy good quality wood and tools. He spent almost all the money he had saved because he wanted everything to be perfect for Hana. He chose strong wooden planks with warm natural colors, durable enough to survive many rainy seasons. He also bought small iron hinges, ropes, paint, and even tiny flower hooks to decorate the gate once it was finished. The villagers noticed his dedication and quietly admired the sincerity in his actions. When he returned, he immediately began working in the yard under the bright afternoon sunlight. The sound of cutting wood and hammering nails echoed peacefully around the quiet countryside home. Sweat covered his face and dust clung to his clothes, but he never stopped smiling. Every piece of wood was carefully measured, cut, and polished by hand. He worked slowly because he wanted the gate to look beautiful, not just functional. Hana stood nearby watching him for hours. Sometimes she brought him cool water or a simple homemade meal, but most of the time she simply observed him quietly, unable to hide the warmth growing inside her heart. She noticed how carefully he sanded every rough edge so her hands would never get hurt touching the wood. He even carved small flower patterns into the center of the gate because he remembered Hana once saying she loved flowers when she was younger. As the days passed, the unfinished gate slowly transformed into something truly beautiful. The wooden frame stood tall and elegant at the entrance of the small house. Above it, the young man added a tiny roof to protect it from rain. On both sides, he built small hanging shelves for flower pots. Under the soft golden light of sunset, the warm brown wood made the entire yard feel alive again. Neighbors walking past the house often stopped to admire the work. Some whispered that Hana was very lucky to have someone care for her so deeply. Others smiled warmly after seeing the young man working tirelessly from morning until evening without asking for anything in return. One evening, Hana quietly approached him while he was carving the final details into the wood. She noticed his hands had become rough and slightly injured from days of hard work. Feeling guilty, she softly asked, "Why are you doing all this for me?" The young man paused for a moment before looking at her gently. "Because seeing you smile makes me happy," he answered honestly. Hana lowered her eyes immediately, trying to hide the tears gathering again. In her lonely life filled with hardship and silence, no one had ever cared about her happiness this much before. And as she stood there watching the beautiful wooden gate slowly take shape under the fading evening sky, Hana realized that the small broken house she once felt ashamed of was slowly becoming a place filled with warmth, hope, and love. A few days later, the beautiful wooden gate was finally complete. Early that morning, the soft golden sunlight spread gently across Hana's small countryside home, making the fresh wood shine warmly under the clear blue sky. The entire entrance looked completely different from before. The old broken bamboo gate that once leaned weakly in the wind had disappeared, replaced by a strong and elegant wooden gate built with care, patience, and sincerity. Small flower pots hung neatly on both sides, while delicate carved patterns decorated the center of the wood. Even the little pathway leading into the yard seemed brighter and more welcoming than ever before. The young man stood quietly near the entrance, wiping the dust from his hands after finishing the final touches. Although his clothes were covered in sawdust and his hands were rough from days of hard work, there was satisfaction in his eyes. He looked toward the house and gently called Hana outside. "Hana," he said softly, "come and see." Inside the house, Hana slowly stepped toward the door, still unaware that he had finished everything. When she walked outside and saw the completed gate standing proudly in front of her home, she suddenly stopped walking. Her eyes widened with shock, and for several seconds she could not say a single word. The warm sunlight shining across the polished wood made the entire entrance look peaceful and beautiful, like something from a dream she had never dared to imagine for herself. The young man carefully opened the gate for the first time, the wooden doors moving smoothly with a soft sound. "Do you like it?" he asked quietly, almost nervously. Hana slowly walked closer, her trembling fingers gently touching the smooth wooden surface. She noticed every small detail he had added, the carefully carved flowers, the tiny roof above the gate, and the hanging flower pots swaying lightly in the morning breeze. She could immediately tell how much time and effort he had poured into every piece of wood. This was not simply a gate. It was proof of his kindness, his care, and the affection he had silently carried in his heart for her. Tears quickly filled Hana's eyes. She tried to smile, but her emotions became too overwhelming. Before she realized it, tears rolled softly down her cheeks. "It's beautiful," she whispered emotionally. "I never thought my home could look like this." The young man looked at her gently and smiled. "Your home was always beautiful," he replied. "It only needed a little warmth." Those words touched Hana deeply. For so many years, she had lived quietly with loneliness, believing that her small broken house and difficult life would never change. She had become used to surviving alone without expecting kindness from anyone. But standing there in front of the beautiful gate, watching the sunlight dance across the wooden entrance he had built with his own hands, she suddenly felt something she had not felt in a very long time: happiness. The wind blew softly through the yard as birds sang peacefully nearby. Hana looked around the small home that once felt cold and empty. Everything now seemed warmer, brighter, and full of life. The new gate did more than change the appearance of the house. It changed the feeling of the entire place. It made the home feel safe, cared for, and loved. Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, Hana turned toward the young man and hugged him tightly. For a moment, both of them stood silently together beneath the warm morning sunlight. No expensive gift or grand promise could have touched Hana's heart the way this simple wooden gate had. As laughter slowly filled the little yard once again, the young man quietly realized that the greatest reward for all his hard work was not the gate itself, but seeing Hana smile with genuine happiness. And deep inside their hearts, both of them understood that from this day forward, the small country